Hello everyone, and welcome to your very first Swift programming tutorial. My name is Lucas, and I'm going to be guiding you through a series of tutorials on Apple's new programming language called Swift. Now, if you're coming into this series and you're saying to yourself, dude, I've never written a line of code in my life. What is this programming stuff you're talking about? It's all good. Don't have any fear. If you've ever even looked at your iOS device, your iPhone, your iPad, even your Mac, and you've said to yourself, I wonder if I can do that. Or if you've looked at something and said, that's really cool, could I make that? The answer is yes, you can. You just gotta learn a few things here first. So what you need to learn is Swift. Now, Swift is the language that you essentially use to communicate with the computer. Like English is with English speakers, French is with French speakers. You gotta learn Swift to talk to your Mac or any other device that's going to use it, like your iPhone or iPad, etc. Now, with that said, you might also enjoy this series if you're not a total beginner. So if you're somebody who already knows Objective-C or another language, you can totally jump into this series. It'll be lots of fun, and you'll probably learn, a few little quirks along the way. If you don't really care, though, start from the very beginning, you can jump into any series or any tutorial, rather, that you'd like to learn about a specific topic, and you can do that just fine. With that being said, there's also some more advanced tutorials for people like you. There's going to be a functional programming series on Swift that deals with functional programming. If you have no idea what that is, go to that series. Also, there's a Cocoa concurrency series that I'm running, and that deals with concurrency on both iOS and macOS, how to use that, and again, it uses Swift. Tons of Swifty options out there for you, so pick whatever one suits your needs and enjoy. So to begin, if you're watching this on a PC, you're not even at step 1 yet. You gotta get a Mac. You need to own something with Mac OS 10 Mavericks on it. So any new Mac or any relatively new Mac will be able to run Mac OS 10.9, which is Mavericks, and you need that to run Xcode 6. Once you get that Mac, you can go down to the App Store, and all you have to do is search for handy dandy Xcode. And Xcode is the tool that we use to develop all this great stuff. All you got to do, click on that, click on Xcode, download it, and once that's installed, you're good to go. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat here right now. Currently, we're only working with Xcode 6 beta, and that is not available on the App Store right now. So on the App Store, you'll find Xcode 5, which doesn't work with Swift. So to learn this, you need Xcode 6. Xcode 6 will be available to the public around September or October 2014, so if you can wait till then, fine. You can watch these tutorials anyway if you'd like. Also, if you want to become a developer, that's how you can get the beta. It's $100 a year, but if you're new, maybe you don't really want to do that. Anyway, with that said, get Xcode 6, get a Mac, you're good to go. Once you launch Xcode, you'll see that there's this window that pops up. What we want to click is Get Started with a Playground. We're going to call this guy Lesson 1 because it is Lesson 1. Then we're going to stretch this window out just a tad, and now we can work. So what do we see here? Well, there's stuff on the left side. This is your code view where you type all the code out, which is where you write Swift. And on the right side, this is where you see the output. So whatever you type in code on this side will be interpreted, and then it will be displayed on this gray section over here, which is all the output of your code. Now you might be looking at this saying, alright, what the heck, why are they telling me what a playground is? I never ordered a cup of hot chocolate. I don't understand. Don't worry about it. You don't have to use any of these things, and in fact, we're just going to delete them because you don't need to know anything about them right now. Let's start with some real basics. So we have the number 9, the number 10, the number 11. And as you can see, these numbers are the same in Swift. Shockingly, a 9 is a 9 in Swift, and so is 11 is 11. Numbers work the same way. You just type them out, and then you represent a number. You can also do very simple math. So if I wanted to add, subtract, multiply, divide, we can do that as well. So, we're on the playground, so pun intended, let's bring in some 6-year-old, and he's like, yo kids, I'm going to add all your ages together. And for some reason, they all agree to do this, and they actually care for some reason. And as you can see, the sum of everyone's ages here is 36. Ooh, shocking. Now, if I wanted to multiply, I can use the star key that represents multiplication. It's Shift 8 on your keyboard. You can also subtract. That works the same way as subtraction. We can divide by 2, and as you can see, we can divide by 2. So what if I wanted to do something else with not numbers? What if I wanted to use strings, for example, which are basically you saying words? So if I wanted to, say to somebody like, let's get ready to rumble, then I could say, let's get ready to rumble. And that would be displayed like that. Also, if I want to respond to that, like my friend probably would, you say, cool story, bro. And there you go, just a bunch of string of text. So what this is you strung a bunch of characters together and you make a string. How do you do this? You just put a quote at the beginning of your string and the end, and that represents now a string. It's just a bunch of text. Again, I did the same thing here. I just start with a quote and end with a quote, and that is a string of text. If you happen to go beyond the little view that this output goes, you can also hit this little quick look option, little eyeball guy right there. Once you quick look that, you'll see that it presents you with all the text. So if you ever are, you ever need to display the entire thing, you can just hit quick look and that will display everything for you. All right. Well, this is cool and all, but I really can't do anything with this, right? There's nothing that, it's not fun to just yell out into the world and nobody cares. We want to be able to save these values, right? If I write a storybook, I want to be able to share it with people, so I'd like to hold on to that. So how does Swift allow us to hold on to different values? Well, we can do this of one of two ways. The first way we can do is using the let keyword. So I can say let, and for example, I'll say num equal 7. And what this is saying is, let this thing called num be equivalent to 7. So if I say num, and then I say num, and then I say num, you can see that shockingly we get the value of 7 over here. And that's again because we said let this num equal 7. And so anytime we use that value of num, then we can see that there. Alright, so we can do this a bunch of times. We can say num2 gets 10, for example, and we can make a string. So we can say let str be a string. So like we were doing before, we do the double quotes, and we can say whatever we want. So I am 17 years old. There we go. So we do something like that, and as you can see, we have that. And again, if we wanted to use these, we can use them as many times as we want. So that's pretty cool. Now, that's, this string's pretty neat and all, but what if I wanted to put some, what if I want to be smart with this string and actually put something in it? Because, when you're programming, usually you have to get input from the user. So what if you ask the user how old they are and you get this back from them? So for some reason, let's take num and num2 and add them. I don't know why that would represent your age, but it's a good example for what I want to show. So let's say num plus num2, and as you can see, this actually gets interpreted to be 7 plus 10. As you can see on our output, we get a value of 17. Now, why does this happen? Well, because we used this thing. And anytime you see a backslash in a string, that means, here we go, we're going to start something, basically. There's a bunch of different ways you can use backslashes, but for now, I'm just going to show you this reason. And so if we do backslash and then parentheses, this means we're going to start an expression, we're going to evaluate this expression, do whatever we have between these parentheses, and whatever that output is, we're going to put it into the string. So from this example, we're taking num, which is 7, adding it to num2, which is 10, we get a value of 17, and that goes into the string. And because we have a space here and a space on the other side of this backslash, we get the nice string that you see in the output. So that's pretty cool. Now, what if I wanted to change one of these guys? So we'll say, I'm actually, for my age, I'm actually 20. So just in case you wanted to know. And because I'm 20, that means I might want to become 21 at some point. And if you live in America, 21 is your age. But dang, Swift doesn't want me to become 21. It's not happy. And, it's complaining saying, I can't assign this let value. I defined age to be with a let key, and it's saying, no, you cannot do that. So what we are saying when we say let is we're saying this is going to be a constant, and that's what it means. When we say let, we're creating what's known as a constant value. It means it cannot be changed. If we want a variable, something that can change, we can use the var keyword, like that. And you'll see now my complaints go away, and I can freely become 21 and do all that great stuff when I'm 21. Now that we have this, right, we can change it to be whatever I want. If I later become 30, right, I can become 30. So this is the difference between the two keywords. They're the only two keywords you'll ever really use when you're defining a new value. So if I want to define a new value, I say let something be this, right? And then if I want to define something to be variable, right? So this is a constant, but this can change, so I make it a var keyword, and we just say let this thing called age be a variable, and it can hold different values, right? Now, a very important thing about Swift, though, is that it can hold different values, but it can't hold different types. So, for example, if I try to make this a string now, I'll say, age or something like that, then you'll notice it will yell at me. And it's saying basically that you defined this age to be a number, and then you try to switch it later on to become a string. It's like saying you were born a person and then you want to be a dog tomorrow. You just can't do it. You can't be a different type. So how we can fix this is, well, we can't do this, that's the answer, but we have to be aware of the types that we're using. So how can we check to see what types we're actually using? Well, we can use an option click. So if you hold down the option key, it's to left of your spacebar. If you option click on this, and then you read what this says, you'll see that it says that we're using an int. Then that is the type of what we're actually holding on to. Now an int just stands for an integer, and in math that just represents any whole number, a negative number or positive. Now what if I had a decimal number? So let's switch this to be 10.5, for example. And if I check this out, you'll notice that this becomes a double. Now a double is representative of a decimal number. So if I have a decimal, either positive or negative, I would have a double. So those are two different types, ints and doubles. Now, it's yelling at me here because I'm trying to add two different types. And this is a common thing that you'll see is when you're trying to do operations with different types, sometimes it won't work. So in Swift, you have to add the same types together in this scenario. So if I'm adding an int to a double, it says, no, you can't do that. They have to be both doubles or they have to be both ints. So that's what this is complaining about. Now I could switch this to be 7.0, right? That is an answer and it would stop complaining at me. But another way that I can do this is I can make these types explicit. So what Swift is doing right now is it's saying, this guy just typed a 7, he probably wanted an int, right? If he types a decimal, he probably wants a double. But maybe I really wanted a double here, I just didn't actually specify the decimal. So I could actually explicitly tell Swift that I want a double instead of an int. And I can do that by using the colon, and then I just put double. And that explicitly tells Swift this will be a double. And you can actually see that by looking at the output over here. We can see that we get a 7.0. Whereas if I don't have this, you'll notice that it's actually just a 7. It's being represented as, well, it doesn't change because there's an error, but it would be represented as a int. Now, I'm just going to put that back in for a second, and I'm going to show you a few other things. So this guy right here is not an int, and it's not a double. It is actually a type string. So these are, again, different types that you have in Swift. We have ints, doubles, and strings. You'll use them all the time, and you'll get used to them. Don't worry about it. And then, of course, even if they're defined with a different keyword, they're still the same thing. It's still an int. They're just telling you what kind of storage that this guy actually holds onto. The age will actually be an int, or the num will be a double, etc., etc. Now, with all that said, there's some different types that we can know about as well. There's a bool type. Now, a bool type is basically saying that we will have a yes or no, true or false type value. So if I wanted to say, for example, I like chocolate, I could make a constant called like chocolate, and that's always true, right? Maybe I want to make another one called broccoli, maybe some people like broccoli, so we'll make that a variable, for example. And like broccoli can be false for me, but maybe it's true for somebody else, and so potentially we could now change broccoli later on. But these are two different values, a bool and if you check that out, if you option click on that, you can see that they're types right there. So there we go. We have a bool type which takes either a true or false, and this becomes useful in programming because a lot of times you do have to know if something is just true or false. So this is another type that you can use for that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any other questions on anything you saw here, feel free to leave your questions in the comments below, and please subscribe to the channel, check out the other tutorials, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.